All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into this CIPD article about salary sidecars.
Hmm.
And, you know, it's interesting because there's this whole thing about Gen Z being called like the lazy generation.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really stood out to me in this article was how much they're focused on saving money.
Yeah, definitely. Like having a rainy day fund,
Yeah, exactly.
which is really interesting.
Very interesting.
Considering all the other things you hear about that generation, they're really thinking ahead,
Right.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And, salary sidecars, which is what this article is all about.
Yeah.
Basically, the idea is that a portion of your salary goes directly into a savings account.
Right.
So it's like,
Automatic.
yeah, automatic savings.
Built in.
Built in, yeah. And it seems like that's becoming increasingly popular.
Mhm. And it's not just like for retirement or something. They're talking about like short-term goals too.
Exactly, like buying a house or dealing with unexpected expenses, which I think is really smart.
Yeah. So it's like a safety net almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes the pressure off of having to actively manage your savings.
Right. Because who wants to do that?
Especially when you're just starting out in your career.
Yeah.
You got a million things going on.
Right.
Yeah. So having something like this can be super helpful.
Absolutely.
There's always a but.
There's always a but, right. There's some downsides to consider too.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is like,
Mm.
we're in a cost of living crisis.
Right.
So like asking people to put aside even more money right now
Yeah.
could be really tough.
It's a valid point. And actually the article mentions that people are opting out of pension schemes
Right.
for the same reason.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword for sure.
it is. So I guess it's about,
Mhm.
it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. And the article talks about that.
Yeah.
It's about having a range of options.
That caters to different needs.
And maybe that's a good point to jump into talking about
Yeah.
how important it is
Mm-hmm.
for employers to offer benefits
Definitely.
that really actually help
Mm-hmm.
improve their employees' financial well-being.
I think that's crucial. And the article even mentions a statistic
Yeah.
that 65% of workers actually look for these kinds of policies when they're job hunting.
Wow.
So it's not just about attracting talent anymore.
Right.
It's about keeping people. People are really prioritizing financial stability.
Hmm.
They want to work for companies that share that value.
Yeah. It's almost like a shift in the whole relationship between employers and employees. It's not just like,
the partnership.
right.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not just a paycheck anymore.
Right. It's like you're actually looking for a partner in
Yeah.
your financial journey.
Exactly.
Someone who understands your needs
Yeah,
and helps you like navigate
Right.
the complexity of money.
absolutely. Which brings us to another important point.
Uh-oh. Another but.
Yeah, kind of. Like I said before, there are some downsides to consider, and this is a big one. Salary sidecars aren't a magic solution.
Okay.
The article even talks about a legal case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where an employer accidentally violated minimum wage laws
Oh, wow.
because of their sidecar program.
So even with good intentions,
Exactly.
you can still mess things up.
Yeah. So there are legal and ethical considerations. You really have to be careful.
So it's not as simple as just like setting up a saving scheme and calling it a day.
Definitely not. The CIPD stresses the need for a holistic approach
Right.
to employee financial well-being.
Yeah.
It's about more than just sidecar savings.
Okay. So it's about providing other benefits and support system.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
It's about creating a culture of financial wellness,
Hmm.
providing resources, education, and support
Right.
to help employees make good decisions about their money.
So even if you have this great sidecar savings program, if it ends up leaving someone struggling to pay their bills,
Right.
that's not really helping.
Not at all.
Yeah. That's not financial well-being.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance
Right.
and understanding the individual needs of each employee.
So salary sidecars can be a great tool,
Definitely.
but they're just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And employers need to be really thoughtful
Yeah.
and informed when they're designing these programs.
Mm-hmm. To avoid those unintended consequences.
Exactly. It's about doing the right thing in the right way.
And recognizing that financial well-being
Yeah,
is a journey,
absolutely.
not just a destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. So much to think about with these salary sidecars.
There is.
And I'm curious to learn more about like what companies are already doing
Yeah,
to support their employees' financial well-being.
me too. And I think the article has some interesting examples.
Oh, perfect.
So let's dive into those next.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the article points out that like 59% of workers believe their employer should have a financial well-being policy.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Right. Like people really want this.
Yeah, it's not just like a nice to have anymore.
Exactly. And I think it makes sense because when you're stressed about money,
Oh, yeah.
it affects everything.
Yeah.
Your health, your relationships, your work.
You can't focus.
Right. You're constantly worried.
Yeah.
And the article even talks about how financial stress can lead to more absenteeism.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So employers could actually save money
Interesting.
by supporting their employees' financial well-being.
So it's not just like a feel-good thing.
No, it's actually smart business.
Right.
And then there's this whole idea of like integrating sidecar savings with pensions.
Oh, yeah. I was curious about that.
It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, like instead of just locking away your retirement funds for decades,
Right.
you could maybe access some of that money sooner.
Exactly. Because life happens.
All the time.
Yeah, you might have unexpected expenses or opportunities come up,
Right.
and you need that money now.
And maybe that could help people who are really struggling with the cost of living.
That's the idea. But
Yeah.
of course, there's the concern that people might opt out of these schemes too.
Right. Like
Oh.
we were talking about with pensions.
Exactly. So it's kind of a balancing act.
It is. And that's where I think financial education comes in.
Oh, definitely.
Because if you don't know how to manage your money,
Right.
even the best savings plan won't help you.
It's like giving someone a fancy car,
Yeah.
but they don't know how to drive.
Exactly. So the article really emphasizes the need for employers to provide
Yeah.
financial literacy resources
Mm-hmm.
and not just like a one-time workshop.
Right.
It needs to be ongoing support
It's about creating a culture of financial wellness.
where people feel comfortable asking questions.
Yeah, like normalizing conversations about money.
I like that.
It shouldn't be taboo.
Right. It's such an important part of our lives.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting is that the article mentions this research trial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with BT, Step Change, the University of Glasgow, and Timpson.
Wow, that's a lot of big names.
Right. They're looking at how payroll savings programs like sidecar savings can actually reduce the need for employers to offer other forms of financial assistance.
Like loans.
Exactly, because sometimes those loans just create more debt.
Yeah, and they don't really solve the underlying problem.
Right. So this trial is looking at how to prevent those problems in the first place.
It's kind of like a win-win.
Exactly. Employees build financial resilience and employers potentially save money.
And time.
Yeah, it's about being proactive rather than reactive.
I like that approach.
Me too. And, it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what if this became the norm?
Like, what if financial well-being was just as important as health insurance?
It would be a huge shift.
It would, but I think it would be a positive one.
I agree. It's about creating a more equitable and sustainable workforce.
And recognizing that people have lives outside of work. And those lives can impact their work.
It's all connected.
It is. And
Yeah.
that's what makes this whole conversation about salary sidecars so fascinating.
It's not just about the money. It's about the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's about how we work.
And how we live.
And how those two things intersect.
How we can create a better future for everyone.
Well said.
I'm curious to see where this all goes.
Me too. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how this evolves.
Yeah.
It really feels like we're moving towards a future where employers are more involved in their employees' financial well-being.
Yeah, like it's not just about the salary anymore.
Right. It's about education and resources too.
Like a more holistic approach.
Exactly. And this CIPD article kind of hints that that shift is already happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like employees are actively looking for companies
Mm-hmm.
that prioritize financial well-being.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, could sidecar savings become like as common as health insurance or paid time off?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
I mean, the article doesn't have all the answers,
Of course.
but it does highlight how sidecar savings could really change things.
Yeah, especially if they're done right.
Right.
Like addressing those legal issues.
Yeah, and making sure they actually help employees.
Not make things worse.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Where these programs are empowering,
Mm-hmm.
not a burden.
And that's key.
Yeah. And maybe it's not just about sidecar savings on their own,
Right.
but how they fit into a bigger strategy.
A bigger picture.
Yeah. For supporting employees.
Yeah, creating that culture of financial wellness.
With resources and education and support.
All of that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into salary sidecars,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like the big takeaway is the
Yeah.
importance of employee financial well-being.
Absolutely. And the role that employers play in that.
Yeah, it's not just about offering a good salary and a 401k anymore.
It's about recognizing that employees have lives outside of work
Yeah, and those lives can impact their work.
and vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by addressing those needs,
Mm-hmm.
employers can create a more
Mhm.
engaged and productive workforce.
And a more financially secure one, too.
Right. So for our listeners, we leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What role can you play in shaping this future of work?
Ooh, good question.
Whether you're an employer or an employee or just someone who's interested in this topic,
Mm-hmm.
the conversation starts with you.
Stay informed, stay
That's
engaged
Yeah, and think about how you can contribute
to a workplace where everyone can thrive.
financially and beyond.
That's what it's all about.
Well said. So that wraps up our deep dive into salary sidecars.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.